These like seats are really comfy, actually.
Right?
They're like really
They're
comfy.
like
Yes,
perfect,
they're cute.
like high back,
Yes.
the arms. I know.
Welcome to the Ayurveda podcast, where we share the wisdom of Ayurveda, herbal medicine, and ancient healings. So today we are with Jocelyn, the Belden Witch. It's a really exciting episodes. We've met through, I think, the Vitality Collective, and then as market friends and peers. And so tell us about your story, how you got started, and any other things that you like to share with your audience.
Well, my name's Jocelyn. I started the Belden Witch like 4 years ago. I've been doing all of this for like over 10 years. But the name the Belden Witch, too, everyone's like, what is that? Like, what does that mean? I don't know if even you know this, but I managed a bed and breakfast for years previous to me doing this.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was like right up the street here in Minturn. And I like did everything from breakfast to reservations to like social media and check-in and everything. And I would become really close with all of my guests because it was more like a home than like a stuffy hotel. And one of my guests, there's a mine that's right up the street from here too. It's called Gilman. So Gilman is the name of the abandoned town, and Belden is the name of the mine.
Okay.
And he would come, there was this one gentleman, he'd come and fix things in the mine or maintain water that's still flowing throughout the mine. And every 2 weeks for like 4 years, I became really like close with him, and he would come back. He's like, oh, I had to cut my hand. I have a headache today. My stomach hurts. This is going on, this is going on. I'm like, put this salve on here, drink this tea, like do this. He's like, every time you come back, or I come back, you have some sort of witchy remedy to fix me up. We'll have to start calling you the Belden Witch. And it just kind of stuck.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'd never heard that story before. Yes.
So it's funny because he was telling like guests of the end, like, oh, you gotta see the witch. And they're like, what? Like, what do you mean? It's like, she's a good witch. It's Jocelyn,
Nice.
you know her.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So do you still see? Do you see guys that are still in contact?
He still comes into town, that same like kind of every 2 week schedule, and we always like meet up for dinner when he's here. Or now that we're in the new house, we have a spare bedroom. He's gonna end up staying with us instead of at the inn, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so before you worked in the, what was it? You said it was like an
like bed and breakfast.
Bed and breakfast place. Before you worked there, like how did it what was the first spark of inspiration to do this work? Like where did it all like root from?
Yeah. So I back home in Massachusetts. So I grew up like South Coast, Massachusetts, so kind of 60 miles south of Boston, more so like Newport, Rhode Island area. And I was living in a teeny little apartment on the river, and it was just like the perfect little cozy spot. And there was just like a ton of like local farms and apothecaries and herb farms, and just I became really interested in it, and always kind of was. Like I remember my meme, she was my great grandmother. She would always like that we used to use this for this, and we used to eat dandelion in our salads, and we used to like, and so even when I was little, and I didn't really remember until I remembered, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely, yes, yes. So it's like that wisdom of like our grandma's, like for me it was like the cinnamon, like, you know, it's like cinnamon tea for cramps, cinnamon tea for like, you know, if anything, it was like, oh, you know, and it was like those things that, but then you don't realize them until like later on that you're like that. I like how you said that, like kind of just reawakening.
Yeah. And it's like, if you think about it, all of our grandmothers, no matter what culture, where in the world, like who you are, your great ancestors were healing themselves with plant medicine. Yeah. And we were sharing that plant medicine.
I love that you're going into that already.
Yes.
Because it's, like it's this wisdom, yes, you know, like this kind of like new age, like healers and medicine people, but like this has been like through all different lineages and generations and different people around the world, like, but it's like so many of those teachings are so similar. It's like the knowledge has always really been there, and we're just like tapping back in, like relearning things that our grandmas and our great grandmas and grandpas knew, and it was like just yes, knew. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like part of the everyday life. It's like it's what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not a new age thing. It's like this old way. You know?
Yes,
it's like
yes.
it's really cool when you start thinking about it.
Yeah.
And even too, like I often think it's like, even if you trace it back to like okay, like way back when the spice trade, like when people started actually traveling and sharing spices are herbs, herbs are medicine, spices are medicine. So it's like when the spice trade started, like global spice trade, there was so much movement happening in the world. Some of that movement was not so great, and some of that movement was, and it's like, but there was just this movement, there was growth, there was change happening, and it all really stemmed around sharing of herbs and spices. Which is so powerful.
Yes, and not like, like something that wasn't growing somewhere else. And then that's where you go into, okay, what was like, the not so good things and the good things of like, okay, you're maybe introducing, a species that was never there. And, there's things that can happen with the ecosystem, but then like sometimes it's so interesting how you can find cinnamon in India and then you find cinnamon in Mexico, and it can be like a slightly different strain of cinnamon, but it's still cinnamon. Or like recently, like when my husband makes fun of me because of this, because like there's this thing called huache, and where I'm from in Zacatecas, and it's like this like vine, like this like long green vine when it's like really nice and ripe, and it has like these little tiny green seeds in it, and you open them up and you eat them in like little tacos and stuff. You put chili and they're so good. And like my mom and I were like a couple years back, we were like in Hawaii, and we're driving through the road, and I'm like, my mom's like, that's huache. And I'm like, and the lady's like, what are you like, what is huache?
What's that?
What's that? And she's like, yes, we eat that. And she's like, we don't eat that. We don't. They just grow in the wild, and there's just some trees, but
yeah.
And so it's like that knowing is like some things that you find in some places that's like they know they eat them and it's very familiar, but other places it's like what? And it can be, and I don't know if it was like exactly the same plant,
but I'm sure it was the like same family,
right?
You know what I mean? That's why you recognized it, or your mother recognized it.
Yeah. But yeah,
it's really cool.
It's fun. It's fun, and to see really going into that, the different things that grow in different places of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so like now that we're talking about like herbs, and we went into like what's the herb that's been like your sister, your spirit herb? Like what's talk about it.
I would say I have,
as we look at this
quite a few. I know, I'm like, well, where did I start? I love roasted dandelion root. Kind of got me into like, ooh, what's behind this? Just like, because even like my meme, the like dandelion leaves, dandelion was everywhere because it just is everywhere. And then when I was like back home in Massachusetts, it's like that, like dandelion's very bitter, but when I found it roasted, I was like, ooh, like it tasted so good. My body really wants that warmth. And come to find out, it's really good for like liver function, liver detox, balancing the body, balancing the blood. And like I personally, like my body really needs that. So it's just interesting because it's like as I'm just learning about other herbs and things, I always come back to like I just love this, like just drinking just a tea, like roasted dandelion. Like, my body just like soaks it up. And then like rose for sure, just that heart medicine, and anything warm. I just want to be warm from the inside out always. So like cinnamon, star anise, clove, those like warm
herbs. Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. And how you, it's so, I love that. that it started like with the dandelion root, but that also started in the roots of your family.
Yeah.
Like that has been like that was like the gateway to herbal knowledge and
Yeah.
stuff. What's your favorite herb right now? Like what have you been working with mostly right now? Or
Um,
just in general, something that's you're like, oh, this is coming up.
Always this time of year, elderberry, probably because I make so much this time of year, because everybody's always sick
Immunity.
and wanting that like immunity for sure. So elderberry always, and yeah, I would say that for sure. Nettle is always like nettle. Everyone that comes in, I've had a lot of mamas lately too coming in, so just nettle has been very on the forefront.
On the forefront.
Yeah.
Nice. Yes. And so as far as like what did you start with first? Did you start with like herbalism or like more energy? Like what yeah, how what's your path been like? Yeah, like 'cause you
Yeah.
do multiple different things, right?
For
Like
sure.
yeah.
And I love to like, it's been really cool because even just building the Belden Witch, everyone's like, well, anybody for that matter who has like an analytical brain, they're like, you can't do all of these things. Like, this is not good for your
You only
brain.
do one
Like,
thing
you
at a
need to,
time.
yeah. And it's like, you need to like, you can't be promoting that. It's like, simplify. And my brain doesn't work that way. And I'm not always in the mood to do one thing. You know what I mean? I'm not feeling called to do one thing all of the time. It's just, I don't know if it's like my,
You know, since I've been doing these podcasts and interviewing different people, what I've been finding is all these different entrepreneurs don't like to do one thing
Yeah.
ever. Like they need that kind of just different stimulation, doing different things. Maybe it's around the same area or you know what I mean? But it's like they need to have their creative juices flowing.
yeah. And like giving yourself that poetic licensing to be like, what do I want to do today? Or not even just today, but like this season of my life, like what feels right? Because there are times like I don't want to be doing private healing sessions with people because I need that energy towards me, or it just doesn't really feel right. And I don't want to, authenticity is huge for me. I will be the first to admit I do not know everything and I will never know everything. And there are some things that it's like, oh, I don't know what that is. Simple as that, you know, versus like, and I don't want to be like, I'd rather be a Jane of all trades versus like a master of one, because everybody has, like everyone has this kind of special magic, right?
Yeah.
And it changes throughout your life. So like your dharma, your life's purpose, it's like it's like, oh my God, what's my life's purpose? What am I supposed to be doing? And then you find one thing that interests you, whether that's herbs, energy work, yoga, meditation, anything, where it gives you life. And when anything fills you up, you want to share it. So, but it's like your dharma, and that could be your dharma, sharing that, but your dharma is allowed to change and shift too. So at one point it might be herbs. At another point, it might be something else. It might be doing someone's taxes and accounting. Like it doesn't need to be just in this quote unquote magical spiritual realm. Everything is magic. So like using whatever feels good to you that like fills you up, sharing that is super important. And I love that I can like be a chameleon, because it's like sometimes I want to talk about this and some days I really want to focus on this, and like I feel like entrepreneurs, any realm that you're kind of creating a business in, allowing yourself to do that really helps growth, because you're not putting yourself in that limiting kind of box.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that goes back into like just into something that I find like just so that I'm really passionate about is like knowing who you are. Like when no one's in the room, like who are you? And that change of that might be different yesterday and today and then a year from now, but like knowing who I am now, like with everything that comes in the moment, and like just yeah, absolutely, and living through like, okay, well, you know, I'm into podcasting right now. Like I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to people and hear their stories and then share them with the world, and it's yeah,
And that might change.
Yeah, yeah.
But for the
that
moment,
might
it feels
change.
good.
It feels good.
So
yes.
it feels good to share that,
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, I come from like a family of like very traditional Mexican Christian family, so it is very like, you know, you're not doing one thing.
Yeah.
Like, what are you? What my parents? So what do you do? People ask me. So what do you do? I was like, it's a different thing. Yeah. I was like, yeah. I'm like, I'm a little curandera. But it's like, but that sometimes I am. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, in those spaces where like, I think the last couple of months, I didn't want to do any healing sessions. I just
didn't feel.
No. Yeah. And you're right. Sometimes you're like, I just need to take care of this. Like, yeah.
Which I think is important too, because it's like, I don't want to be, for lack of better terms, responsible for somebody else's energy when I don't even have mine in check.
Exactly.
You know? So it's like, if you can't, you're not holding space for you, no question are able to hold space for other people. And that goes to say whether you like are doing sessions with people or just anybody who's holding space, mothers, parents, sisters, brothers, anyone who's holding space for other people. It's like, it's like a cliche saying, but it's like, if your cup isn't full, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah. But it's
absolutely. What fills your cup? Follow that joy.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're never going to go wrong.
Yes. Yeah.
What makes you happy?
That intuition to knowing that. Yeah, absolutely. So what's been filling your cup these days?
Good question. This has been kind of it's almost a year, which is crazy to think about.
Yes. I haven't been in here for a year.
It's really wild. And it's not exactly a year, but it's coming up on a year. And it's just like, this has been kind of filling my cup, and just it being that full, I think February will be like a full year of the shop being open. And before the shop, I was doing all of this in my tiny home and like moving everything around and like hosting ceremonies like at this place and this place, like bouncing around, and I just didn't feel grounded. Like, I loved what I was doing, but I knew it wasn't sustainable, because I'm like, okay, I feel so ungrounded. I don't feel at home when I'm home, because it got to the point where like I got rid of all of my furniture because I just needed space for my like tables and my tent and all my boxes and like a workspace. And so when I went home, I couldn't like shut my brain off and like home. I'm home. It was just like, oh my God, I'm looking at this pile of things and I need to do that and this, and like it would never stop. And then when I was out, I like I'm holding space, whether it's in a yoga class or a workshop, and I'm like, I feel so at home in my body when I'm in the moment of holding space, but then right after that, I'm like so depleted. And I was like, there's an imbalance here and I don't know how to fix it. So it was like me finding this place and like nesting here, and it's taken a long time and it's like about even just like a month or two ago, I'm like, oh wait, this is like my store, like this is where all my things are. Like it hit me in a way that it hadn't for a while, because I was still just like, oh my God, okay, like what do I need to do, what do I like, because it's like the list is ongoing, and now I'm just kind of like, the list is ongoing. I'm like, I'm gonna get done what I get done today, and that's all that's going to happen. And it just feels good to like even have it, like to be able to do this here feels so special. And it's like there are walls around us and a roof above us, and it's like this is just like this space has held space for me, and I get to hold space for others, and it's like I could cry just thinking about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's really cool. Thank you. Like I had told you earlier, like, good job.
Thank you.
This is so badass. So just like you could tell the intention that you put into it, the work, and like I feel really blessed that we get to do this here. I was like, I could have. So this is our first video session, and I forget the camera rolling and stuff. I was like, right, and it's good. It's fine because this this is real. Like, I don't want to be like bring some fake shit into the internet, because there's enough of that. Like, I want real conversations with people, and like just like, you know, you can post some things and it's like all, and of course like we want to share the good, the bad, and we don't want to share that stuff, but sometimes like in the struggles, in the deep of like, oh my gosh, like this is like what it actually took for everything else, for what you see out in the like other people or other people that are looking in, like don't maybe not see, right? And yeah, it's just, you've created a really beautiful space, and like for you to feel grounded in that and all of that, like that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thanks for saying all that.
Yeah. And so as far as like, you know, going just deep into that, like, you know, the shadow, like what's been the biggest shadow that's been brought up and during this whole transformation, this whole journey, and recently, the whole Belden Witch.
For sure, like limiting beliefs, like specifically around money, but also being seen. It's like, and I'm just gonna
please
keep crying too, please. Like not thinking like when you were a child, like you were supposed to be seen, and not, I'm not like, I had wonderful parents, so it's just, without going too far into it, it's just like, you shouldn't be seen. Like, don't talk too loud. Like, good job, but like, don't be too loud about it. You know? And I've struggled with that because it's like, how proud am I allowed to be? You know? So like limiting beliefs is like, do you deserve this? Like, are you sure? So even when something like amazing happens, it's like, me? Are you sure? Me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm still clearly working through it, but it's like a constant ebb and flow where like some days are way easier, and like be the first to say like owning a small business, being a small business owner is like terrifying. Terrifying.
And it's really hard.
It's really hard. And it's amazing.
It's amazing.
But it's like,
it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And like you have to really love what you're doing, because then it's like, I don't think you can keep going. You know what I mean? Like it's work, and it's like you said, the list goes on, and like I really think it's like the fastest growth to self-development, because you get to see those things of yourself where you're like,
for sure,
holy shit, like this is coming up. Like this is like, what do I believe is even possible? Because you're creating your own, like, it's, you know, and having a regular job is great, and like, you know, there's this pros and cons in that, but when you go and venture on your passion, on something that you love, and in your like authentically walking into the world as like, this is me, and I'm gonna express this, and you know, I feel like, and I don't know if you could like as women in the industry, and also just like, you know, we're told, you know, don't be too loud, you know, just sit, you must, what are we like sitting with our legs
I know, like, how
like,
dare
not, you know, how dare you? Yes, exactly. And it's, you know, like, and it's, you know, I don't know, like,
it's kind of like like just putting a mirror in your face of like, okay, what's going on internally with you, but also like as women, it's like what's going on with you and generationally too. So bring it back to like our grandmothers and all these things. It's like our grandmothers wouldn't even have, they couldn't do any of this. Do you know what I mean? They literally couldn't go and start their own business.
Oh no.
Like
they barely had a say. My great grandma was stolen.
Oh my gosh.
Like she just like, my grandpa took her, and she just, well, and got stolen. Well, now you get married. She didn't love the man. Yeah. My grandma, same. You know. Yeah. My mom had a choice. You know, like we see the progression of. Yeah. But it's and then like that generational trauma, and also just like, and going into like, because our parents, well, and I'm talking specifically like my parents, like they, you know, like my mom kind of grew up with some of those belief cells, and like obviously like they're, you know, they're slipping away, and things
kind of coming up, and maybe that's like a very like woo woo way to think, but it's just like everything is energy. So if there's like uh, our grandmothers had us in their wombs, like your grandmother had all of like your mother, all of those what, for lack of better terms, like energies within you, and then you were within your mother's, you were in utero with your grandmother.
Yeah.
And it's like just keeping all of that energy, and I feel like even just,
and even the beliefs of like, things that you're taught as you're living, like as you're growing up, like from what they were taught. And even if we go into food and different, like, okay, like, things like cancer running in the family or diabetes running in the family. It's like, if you look back, like, what is everybody eating?
Yeah.
What is everybody doing? What are
their lifestyle? Like, what is their diet?
Yeah.
And not just like what you're eating, but like, what are you thinking? What are you feeling?
I love that you're going into that. Yes. Food is everything that comes in through all the senses. It's not just
like, yeah.
like a chewy thing, with the teeth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about that we can,
just like encouraging people. It's like when I said before, it's like everyone has their special kind of magic. And I feel like with this kind of all these new age things coming back, but it's all like this ancient way of being. It's like people also are feeling very pressured into like, well, I need to be this and this too, and it needs to be in this kind of quote unquote spiritual realm. Like, I need to be certified in herbalism, and I need to be certified in yoga, and certified in sound healing, and certified. And it's like, yes, all of that is wonderful, but you don't need any of that. You could also just be authentically you, loving your job, which is 9 to 5, doing whatever you're doing that you're great at, that still brings you joy. And you could still be interested in all of these things, but it doesn't need to be shifted into this spiritual realm, quote unquote, either. I feel like there's a push to like, there's a big shift happening to where people are like, well, I'm not happy doing what I'm doing, but what should I be doing? Like, where should that be? And it's like, you could, if you're good at what you do and working for somebody else, can you go do exactly what you're doing working for you? And it doesn't need to be a completely different, like, all right, shift gears. It could be that too, but also it's like, I think we just,
there's pressure. There's pressure.
Yeah.
And I think what isn't talked about enough is like, okay, like, yes, it's amazing to follow our dreams and, do what we love and all of that. But it's like, there's also like, we do live here on earth. There's things like, I gotta pay rent. I rent. There's a fine balance between like, okay, like things you gotta plan things. You got to, there's the action behind the thought and like, okay, how is this actually going to play out in the world, and do I really want this? And having like those really authentic conversations with yourself. It was like, okay, maybe I just really like herbs and I want to have an herbal apothecary at home, and I like just want to share it with my family. And like, no, well, maybe I do want to have like a store. But what if I do like, or maybe not, like, it's even like, my husband's mom, she's always been into like, she's a witch, she's always, and she's been doing like the egg balancing, and she doesn't do it for anybody else, but she does it for her family. Like, she's like, I know these things are real, like, I practice these things, but that energy, like, this is where I want it to go. And we all have that choice in that, like, what player do we want to play? Like, what do we want to be? Like, And like you said, like what is that thing that finds you joy? If it's like doing the 9 to 5, having flexibility after work to do whatever you want and not be like, oh, I gotta worry about this, like all these other things. And I think that definitely just finding that authenticity of like, who am I and what do I love, and yeah, and how can I make it happen?
Like what feels right for me.
For me, yes.
Because there's pressure to, and like I was saying, all these like certifications and doing all these things, like, can't you just love it?
Yeah.
And share what you know with the people that you know. You know what I mean? It's like, it
and
doesn't
and
need
there
to...
is also a level of like being self-taught, because there's books, there's like
so much information
free
everywhere.
out there. Yes. And like you said, they're great. Like it's good to, if you really want to, but if you just want to like tip your toes, dabble in a little bit, like there's, I don't know. And yeah, just
like, don't rush.
Yeah, don't rush. Exactly. There's like, oh, I need to get this everything like on the resume, or
check
like
everything off.
Check everything off.
And it's like, we're gonna be here for a while.
Yeah.
So like, don't rush. And like you even saying too, it's like there needs to be action behind that thought. And it's like, that is manifestation. Manifestation is thought in action. And it's like, if you're trying to manifest this new life, it requires like, okay, well, wait, why am I just going to be blindly manifesting if I don't know what the outcome is? And that requires slowing down and hang on, wait, who am I? What's happening here? And that doesn't, like, you don't just do that once. You don't just like sit in a meditation. You're like, oh my God, thank God.
I know, I figured out my whole life.
Exactly. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
And like, so don't rush through anything. Don't rush in finding out who you are and what you want. And even like, it took one of the biggest lessons too I've learned from even this is like, don't rush. Like I just figured, like, I knew this, but it finally settled. Because even within the year of this being here, I'm like, oh my God, I have so much to do. Like, I still don't even have a sign on the front door. Like, because it's just not, I have so much to do, and I don't know where to start. Every day when I wake up, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, so it's just like telling myself, like, don't rush everything. Like, this is your business. This is going to show up whenever you want it to. And the way that you want it to, if you just let it. Because for a while I was like forcing. And I'm like, oh my God, nothing's happening. Why is like, I feel like I'm running in place. Because I was like, I should, this should be done. This should already be done. I should be doing this. And it's like, why? Who's saying that? And then it's like that mirror of like, okay, wait, all these insecurities coming up, this like limiting beliefs of like, are you sure you want this? It's like, no, I'm sure, but I wasn't checking in to like, what would it feel like if I allowed myself all of these things? Why are these things coming up for me? What is that thing that I'm manifesting? Why am I doing this? Where's the why? Like, and for who? So it's like, it takes that, like, not everything requires action, because then you're just blindly running and you're like, I'm tired, but I'm still running. And like, where am I even running to? So like, stop doing that. And like me saying that to myself, it's like, okay, just like stop. You're allowed to have days off where you do nothing. Not like, oh, I'm resting, but I'm gonna like, no, like truly stop. And like, as women, it's like, we're so intuitive. Your intuition is wanting to tell you, or it's like trying to tell you. Your body's trying to tell you what it needs. You're like, everything is trying to tell you if you just like stop and listen. And it's like, we feel like we need to get everything done. We need to check everything off the list. We need to be like, okay, I'm not allowed to be happy with my life right now. And it's like, well, what's the point? You're never going to be happy with your life in the now if you're always like, I should be, let's get this, I gotta go do more things and know more things and get more things done. And it's like, more isn't always more. So it's just like, what is happening right now? why is this coming up for me right now? This is bringing me joy right now, and I can savor every ounce of it, even if it's a little something small, you know. So that's
drinking a cup of tea, a cup
yes,
of coffee,
yes,
and being like, okay, just like I'm just gonna enjoy this right now and just nothing else. Like this is you know, I wonder where society right now has just been going so fast, and it's hard to, like, how, like, what a thing, how it's hard to slow down. Like, what a, you know, like just these pressures, but I think that's gonna be definitely like it's like a just collective consciousness that we're all just trying to slow down, because I think it's a lot of people, and not just this, you know, more spiritual world, but like in so many other,
everywhere
people are just like go and not like slow down. That's why things like meditation and all these things are kind of coming up. It's like people need help to slow down.
Well, and people are wanting that, and they're wanting that connectedness, whether it's to themselves, to the earth, to their community, to plants, they're wanting that connectedness, and that people are noticing. And like history nerd, rewind it back to, it's like Industrial Revolution. That was action, and that's all that's been happening until now. And it was a very masculine energy. I don't mean gender, I mean just movement and action, and just like this push to make progress. And then I feel like now things are shifting into this very feminine energy, this need for slow and savory and nurturing and coming home to, and just that kind of mother energy of like, wait, this movement, and like feeling that I need to like get everything done and be like, have all my ducks in a row and have all these whatever,
the squareness of things, you know,
those sharp edges,
like, instead of like, which is the more female, like we just, it's a flow, it's it's, you know, the creativity, I don't know where this is going, but this is just like a river,
you know?
but I'm still moving,
and sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it can be fast, and that's good too. But it's like change, and like that pause is necessary, but you don't need to force anything at the same time. And I feel like we're like switching to that.
And you brought up something that I think is really interesting about like the connection piece, and I really like the connection, the relationship. And when you know, mentioning like, oh, you know, certification, blah blah blah, 1 2 3 4, you know, all these things, and it's like, where's the relationship? And like there's this I do this shamanic training in Denver, and we have like what's like a mesa, which is like like a spiritual altar that you take on the go. Is the way of saying it. And you start with what's called a puya, which is it's like a stone. It's a stone that you put one intention, but instead of having, you know, like the crystal collector over here, that it's like you have all these different crystals, and you're like, ooh. You have just this one stone, and you develop this one relationship with this one thing. And that's been coming up a lot recently, and that's why I wanted to ask you, like, what's the one herb, like because sometimes it's like, okay, you know, you want to do all these different things and stuff, but like sometimes it is about slowing down and having that connection with one thing for that moment, and really like slowing down. This is what's here now. My relationship, like for me, like having that relationship with flowers. That's why I love doing the flower sweeping. It's like I love flowers. It's like they bring light, and like, and having that relationship, instead of like, okay, well today I'm gonna work with the egg, I'm gonna work with like, you know, all like the, you know, maybe some eucalyptus leaves, and there is part of that as well that comes in like in an intuitive sense. But like, and especially like if someone is out there like wanting to know about a bunch of different herbs, like sometimes it's good just to know about 1, 2 or 3, and be like, I know this herb, like I know this, like the back of like the back of my palm, you know, like
you have a relationship, like that, bone deep, where you're like, no, I know this, not like
so yes
it's like
Yeah. And I think that's really like where that connection comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And even like, with people in our lives and like, and being intentional with like a business and what you want to do. It's like, it's that relationship with your business. It's that relationship with the thing that you're doing of like, okay, I'm not just going to go into action. Like you were saying, it's like, okay, sitting down and marinating in this. It's like, where do I want to take this?
Yeah.
It's like those fun questions, but also like, oh.
Well, and it can be like daunting because it's like, well, wait. When you realize like, well, possibility's endless here. And when you like take away that box, it's like, oh my God, wait, hang on. This is like too many choices and I'm responsible. Like, who put me at the helm here? But it's like, it's also it gives you this like endless, just like it feels very expansive to where it's like, wait, if I'm choosing to like really like ground into this, whatever feels good, whether it's in your business or in your relationships or with even coming back to herbs, it's like, if I can ground into this one thing, this feels so much more nourishing than me trying to spread myself thin all over the place.
Yeah. And I think that goes into like personal healing and personal development of like sometimes, going and doing all the things, I went out to the meditation, I did all the silent retreats, I did all the, and it's like, but were you there? Did you pause? Did you sit? Were you there with everything that comes with being a human on the earth and like just things that you've lived or your traumas, everything. It's like, okay. And knowing that it's like, there isn't like I love that you wish is like, okay, I just meditated 10 minutes or whatever and I'm done. I'm, I know. No. Yeah. It doesn't really work that way. And it's a process and there isn't like there might be little aha moments. There's little, those things that come up, but it really is a journey and it's like an onion, like it's layers and layers.
It's like just like a little piece. I always tell people too, it's like, you don't just like, your life is a constant balance, right? You're like either out of balance, you're in balance, you're over the like it's finding balance and it's constant. You're not just like, oh, I found balance. Like that doesn't happen.
And ever. No more imbalance ever again.
Yes, like that doesn't ever happen. There's constantly things changing, so it's a constant practice of like, hang on, be here. What's happening right now? And like, it's hard to do in the society that we live in because it's still wanting that action, but there are more people that are like, hang on, this doesn't feel good. Even if you don't know how to fix it, it's like just having the awareness of like, this isn't right is huge. So like for anybody too who's just like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing isn't right, that is like, give yourself credit and then some, because you slowed down enough even for just a second to notice that it doesn't feel right. Everything else is just like bringing, like the body and the mind are not separate. So if your body is telling you like this isn't right, your mind is like, hey, this isn't, your mind feels the same way. You know what I mean? And it's like that you're not ever going to do the wrong thing. You're just like, even if you try something and it doesn't feel right, it's just going to bring you into that balance somewhere else. You know what I mean?
And experience is experience. You experience that you didn't like it.
Yeah.
Well, oh well.
Which is good.
Great. Yeah.
Now you know what you don't like.
Yeah. Exactly. Now you don't know what you don't want. But yeah. So how do people find you?
Just through the ethers.
Call to me into the stars.
Purple smoke.
In Minturn.
And my website, thebeldenwitch.com. I post all of my like events and things on there too. Because this isn't just Apothecary, Metaphysical shop. I want this to be a community space too. So I love, I host like full moon ceremonies and different rituals and just gatherings just to be human